Moin, ihr wunderbare Menschen des Interwebs. Ich begrüße euch ganz herzlich zurück zu meinem Let's Play von The Great Ace-Attorney Chronicles. Wir sind wahrscheinlich im letzten Part von diesem Fall angekommen und auch vom letzten Part im ersten Spiel von The Great Ace-Attorney Chronicles. Ich bin mal gespannt, wie das Ganze jetzt ausgeht und würde sagen, wir hören uns mal seine Aussage hier an. While these ruffians were jostling with the broker, I was still near the entrance to the shop. So. Ich habe jetzt nicht wirklich irgendwas, deswegen werde ich hier alles angreifen. Mr. Winniebank emerged from the storeroom, I believe. Ringo and Nash was scouring the counter when he suddenly appeared and flew at them. He already had the revolver in his hand. Fortunately, I wasn't too close. I've never been so scared in all my life. Yeah, we're just your regular mild-mannered burglars, that's all. We don't like violence. That's the pair who carry a gun. What do you mean when you say you were near the entrance to the shop? I was in the doorway, running my eyes over the shelves for faded items. Looking for the music box, of course. The broker went for Nash in the first place, then Ringo joined in, making it 2 against 1, so I assumed they could handle the situation. But I was wrong. I was trying to help me a little proof, but the old geezer jacked me over the bloomin' counter. So I pulled me gun on the old feller, and that soon made him scarper. The pair of you setting upon the poor defenseless pawnbroker together, shame on you. Sorry, goof. When Winniebank threw Nash over the counter, I felt a sharp pain in my arm. You mean that's the moment you were shot? Yes, though I didn't immediately realize what had happened, of course. Things crashed to the floor from the counter as the 3 men were brawling. It was at exactly that moment that it happened, so I didn't hear the gunshot. And the bullet went on to strike the calendar in the wall behind you. So it would appear. When I looked at my arm, I saw it was bleeding badly, so I wrapped my handkerchief around it. Seeing as I couldn't explain what had happened to the doctor, I had no choice but to wait for it to heal. I didn't imagine it would still be bleeding 2 days later. Did Mr. Winniebank intend to shoot you, do you think? Well, no, I don't imagine he even noticed I was there, to be honest. Perhaps the gun went off accidentally. Anyway, it didn't quite strike home. When I pulled my gun on him, he tried to shove me out the way. And then he scarped through the door out back. At which point, what did you do? Okay, I pursued the man, but he shut himself in the storeroom. I could see him through the peephole in the door, though. You mean you chased after him? I don't recall the reason why, but I ran after him to the back of the shop. Ja, also bisher ist noch nicht wirklich irgendwas dabei, wo ich beweisen könnte, dass das, was er jetzt aussagt, falsch ist. Es ist natürlich obvious falsch und es macht auch nicht wirklich Sinn, aber ich brauche ja Beweise. What about this peephole in the door you mentioned? Well, unsurprisingly, the storeroom door is a solid job, made of stout wood. But there is a small opening in it, about a head high, that lets you see what in there from the outside. Actually, I should know that, shouldn't I? I looked through it myself that night. And what about your burgling brothers? Did you see what went on through this peephole as well? Not likely, goof. Didn't see nothing of the sort, goof. I doubt these 2 buffoons were even aware of the peephole's existence. So the Skulkin brothers were there, but they didn't see the killing of Mr. Winniebank take place. Inside the storeroom, I could see the broker and that young girl standing there. The defendant? Yes, so neither of them noticed that I was looking. The girl raised her gun and pointed it straight at the man. And then, what did you see next? The accused in a black coat shot the man in the back as he was trying to flee to safety. Yes, when the crime was discovered, the defendant was found with a gun in her hand, but that was Mr. Winniebank's gun, from which only a single bullet had been fired. And as we've already established, Mr. Graydon, that bullet was fired at you. But no, it wasn't the broker's gun that the pickpocket girl had when I saw her. Yes, the bullet from Winniebank's gun grazed my arm, and yes, the Skulkin's gun grounded the detective. But this was another gun entirely, a third gun. The broker's gun was not the murder weapon, so clearly there had to be a third firearm involved. In other words, the accused must have had her own gun with her at the time. But no other gun was found at the scene. Calm yourself, counsel. Sorry. You must consider the events in order. At first I saw the broker and the girl glaring at each other, but then all of a sudden the broker turned to run. And it was at that moment that the little gutter rat shot him in the back. A chilling image, I must say. All over her? Yes, through the peephole I saw it clearly. Of course, the stains are invisible now. What with the coat being such a dark color. But I assure you, that garment is sealed with the victim's blood. Ja, macht das mit Absicht, weil eben genau weiß, dass auf diesem Mantel das Blut von seinem Vater drauf ist. Well, it is sealed with blood, that's for sure. But it's not Mr. Windybank's blood, is it? No, that's right. It's Mr. Mason Milverton's blood from when McGilded stabbed him 2 months ago. It's so annoying. If they would only accept Hurley's chemical analysis, we could prove that. But they won't. So unfortunately, we can't use it as evidence to support our case. Father. So, then she tossed the gun out of the peephole, so I picked it up and made my escape. Did I hear you correctly? She threw the gun out of the room? That's right. After the broker fell to the floor, she started walking over. Over where exactly? In the direction of the storeroom door, to where I was watching. Of course, I quickly retreated, and then the girl dropped the gun through the peephole onto the floor on my side of the door. But why on earth would she do such a thing? I couldn't tell you. Perhaps she was hoping to distance herself from the murder weapon. Without thinking, I went and picked it up. I suppose I was worried about just leaving it there and any more tragedies took place. So it was you, in fact, who took the third gun from the scene of the crime? Yes, it was yours truly. I left the clear up to my lackeys and left. Clear up? We made a bit of a mess around the counter, so Mr. Whistleson flew there told us to tidy up. He thinks it's our blooming mom sometimes. Well, I was paying you enough, by God. Tell me, Mr. Graydon, when you left the pawnbrokery that night, was it by any chance with the second disc in your jacket pocket? You're like a bull at a gate, or aren't you? Was machen die beiden denn hier? Leute? Gentlemen. Something wrong, Sunshine. That should be my line. You do realize you were just violently shaking Mr. Skulkin? Blimey, this bit of an all again, ain't he? What was going on just now? You saw him, he grabbed me weasel. Why the blazes, he said, didn't you mention the third gun when we got you down the station? And why didn't you? Because we didn't know nothing about it, or that flaming peephole in the door. Sorry about that. I can be prone to losing my rag sometimes. Not hurt, are you? God blimey, see the way he's looking at me? I'm telling ya, this D gives me willies. That was strange. Inspector doesn't normally get quite as worked up as that. He wouldn't normally grab someone. No, that wasn't like Rexy at all. He's normally all sweetness and light, no matter what I say to him. Yes, well, I think you might be a special case, Iris. Well, anyway, that was definitely out of character. My lord, requesting your lordship's permission to interrupt the cross-examination. Explain yourself, officer. I have the results of the test that was ordered earlier, my lord. The blood on the accused's overcoat. Thank you, officer. Very well. The cross-examination is hereby temporarily suspended. I presume you have no objection, counsel? No, my lord. Well, there you have it. The report, please, Inspector. Yes, sir. Traces of human blood were found on the overcoat of the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade. From the extent of the stains, it would appear that they were the result of spattering following a gunshot wound. End of report. See, what did I tell you? No, the blood on that coat is not Mr. Windybanks. What on earth makes you say that, counsel? The coat originally belonged to Magnus McGilded. Just before his coat was deposited at Windybanks, McGilded had fatally stabbed Mr. Mason Milverton. So the blood on that overcoat is the blood of the brickmaker from the omnibus case. Well, the dead cannot speak. Isn't that right, my Nipponese friend? Sorry. 2 months ago in this very courtroom, did you not argue fervently for McGilded's innocence? And yet, now that the man is dead, you brand him as a murderer? Your conduct shatters any shred of respect you may have earned for yourself in this country. But that was... I call it all belly disgrace, treachery, that's what it is. How to determine whether the blood on that coat is 2 months old or not? Even a stereoscope couldn't help the answer to that problem pop out. It can't be done. But we used Mr. Shumps especially for... Mr. Shumps is a detective, not a chemist. Would you put such faith in a chemical formula devised by me, for example, when I'm a communications officer? I held out Piroski to a starving boy and he ran away crying. Oh, Maus ist so süß. Sherlock Holmes is barely more than a figment of the public's imagination. His name carries no weight in this courtroom, no weight at all. How could you say that? Victory is sweet indeed. This proves that my testimony is the whole truth from start to finish. How do you arrive at such a conclusion, sir? As the witness said, the accused's coat was spattered with the blood of the victim. The only way Mr. Graydon could possibly have known the fact is if he saw it happen. In other words, his testimony is solid and the conclusion is singular. It was the accused who shot the victim in this case. That is the whole truth. Oh, die Luft wird langsam eng. Been a long battle this one, but this old warhorse has something to say now, if you please. Mr. Foreman, as of this moment, sir, the squadron has reached its final decision. Ready, man? All for one now.
Yuzai.
Yuzai.
Yuzai. Yuzai.
Yuzai.
Yuzai.
Well, it would appear the ladies and gentlemen of the jury have reached an anonymous verdict. Das ist nicht so gut für uns. The defense has consistently failed to unpick this witness's testimony. Here's to any attempt you may make at unpicking the juror's decisions being equally successful. I don't believe it. After I've come so far, how is it all unraveling on me so fast? How very distressing to be held in such low esteem. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Naruhodo? Officer, you have delivered the report now. That will be all. Thank you. It occurs to me with some regularity, Mr. Naruhodo, that scientific truths are determined not by science, but by none other than the human mind. I know that voice. Am I going mad? Mr. Shams, what is the meaning of this? Order. What business do you have here, detective? The last I heard you were recuperating in hospital. As well as I would be, had I not been set upon an errand. What errand? Early, it's really you. You're awake at last. Yes, good day, Iris. I appear to be rather late to rise. My apologies. Now, my lord, if you will humor me. In what manner, sir? I have something of great importance I wish to give to the young lawyer over there. I need no more than 5 minutes. Would you be so kind as to spare us the time? What say you to this, Lord von Zieks? This trial has taken many hours of the court's time, having spent so long already. Exactly, having spent so long already, we don't want to go wasting any more precious time. As I was saying, having spent so long already, it would seem churlish to deny the defense a mere 5 minutes. Very well then, counsel, you have 5 minutes. My dear fellow, I apologize for my tardy arrival. Mr. Shams, are you alright now? Alright, I'm all wrong. Sorry? I've only just managed to summon the strength to stand, man. I asked the judge for 5 minutes. But if you're even that may prove too much for me, pray forgive me should I pass out. Let's make this discussion as short as possible. Early, this place is full of idiots. None of them can see how wonderful your chemical blood analysis is. Ah well, that concoction of mine was really just a bit of sport to assist me in my investigations. I never took the trouble to refine it for appraisal by the scientific community and oversight on my part. Right, modesty? Surely not. But enough of that. I'm here to give you this, my dear fellow. What's that? A lavender furoshiki wrapping? A living present from Miss Susato. From Miss Susato? If possible, matters were to be settled without me giving you this. Those were her instructions when she asked me to do her this favor. I don't understand. Miss Susato foresaw today's events, I believe. She knew that the culprit would attempt to escape justice by means both devious and underhand. And that you, Mr. Naruhodo, fighting fairly as you are wont to do, would find yourself in considerable peril. At that very moment of crisis, you were to be given this small parcel. Those were the dear lady's instructions. A leaving present from Susato-san? Whatever could it be? What is this? It's the machine I made. Look, I used this. It's my latest invention. What is that? I call it the cat flapper mat. It can make a cat flap for a little furry friend like Waggy in seconds. What's Susie up to? Miss Susato muttered the following words before she left. I'm a failure. I don't deserve to be a judicial assistant. What? Didn't she say something like that? You really are the best judicial assistant in the world. Well, that's extremely flattering. But I'm sorry to say that I've been a complete failure. Whatever did she mean by that, Mr. Shams? That night, when you left Winniebanks in pursuit of the thieves, Miss Susato made use of this contraption for a certain purpose. That is your answer, dear fellow. Not at all cryptic, then. Susato-san used this cat flapper mat that night, but why? Okay. Your 5 minutes is over. Oh, vielleicht ist die Waffe da? Die dritte, vielleicht? We're out of time already? Oder die zweite Music Disc? Also, ich kann mir jetzt irgendwie nur vorstellen, dass Susato dann da irgendwas versteckt hat, oder? Ich bin da gerade ein wenig aufgeschmissen. Aber wenigstens wissen wir jetzt, worüber die beiden gesprochen hatten im Krankenhaus. I'm grateful to you for affording us that brief recess, Mr. Reaper. I need no thanks, Detective. After all, the die is cast. Is it really? The jurors are anonymous in their leanings. No doubt my learned friend will consider a summation examination. But any attempt to alter the verdict now would be utterly futile. I wonder... Mr. Naruhodo... yes? The rest is down to you, dear fellow. What is your plan? The rest is down to me? I need to be careful here. If I make a wrong move, the trial will end badly. My lord, the defense requests a summation examination, further cross-examination, time to think. Ja, Zeit zum Denken, aber ich glaube, das würde uns auch nicht helfen. Ich denke, wir gehen mit der Cross-Examination. Further cross-examination. The jurors have spoken. Protocol dictates that you may not cross-examine a new witness now. The defense is not asking for the cross-examination of a new witness, rather to continue with one of an existing witness. It would appear that a rather important detail has escaped your attention, Mr. Reaper. Requesting your lordship permission to interrupt the cross-examination. Thank you, officer. Very well. The cross-examination is hereby temporarily suspended. I presume you have no objection, counsel? No, my lord. So nobody can say anything then. If Runo asks to resume his cross-examination of Mr. Graydon, the court is obliged to allow it. This is absurd. I would remind those present that this is my courtroom. I concur that the defense is entirely within its rights to request the continuation of the cross-examination. However, I will not permit an unremitting protraction of these proceedings. Therefore, I have decided to afford the defense one final opportunity in concluding the cross-examination. Counsel, you must choose but one statement from the witness's testimony and but one piece of evidence to present in support of your argument against it. A single chance to present evidence? If following that the situation remains unchanged, I shall move to Urteilsverkündung. It's a clear, counsels. You will now not press the witness any further. My lord. Yes, my lord. A single statement and a single piece of evidence. Most generous. Well then, Mr. Naruhodo, it's high time. I fell in a dead faint. I leave this in your capable hands. Mr. Sholmes. To stand so insanely before the court in a state of such high fever, either the man has extraordinary strength of mind or an extraordinary lack of feeling. I imagine he's feeling very little now. The detective is sleeping soundly in one of the antechambers. Strike a man when he's down, why don't you? Well done, counsel. Are you fully prepared? Yes. One statement, one piece of evidence. I won't let Mr. Sholmes down. Or Iris. Or Susato? And I won't waste this final chance that Susato-san has given me. This is going to decide the entire outcome of the trial. Very well then. Under the terms I have outlined, you may resume the cross-examination. Okay. Ich muss irgendeine Aussage finden, die mir hilft. Und mit diesem Katzenklappen-Ding. While the reference broker, I was still near the entrance of the shop. When Winnie banged through Nash over the counter, I felt a sharp pain in my arm. I pursued the man, but he shut himself in the storeroom. I could see him through the peephole in the door, though. The accused in a black shot the man in a black. I saw the blood spatter all over the wretched girl. Then she tossed the gun out of the peephole, so I picked it up and made my escape. Okay, eine Chance. I pursued the man, but he shut himself in the storeroom. I could see him through the peephole in the door, though. Moment. Wir gucken uns das Ding erstmal an. Okay, das hilft uns nicht. Okay, What on earth is that eccentric contraption, counsel? Oh, it's my cat Flappermat, my lord. It makes a way for cats to get in and out of a room. It can cut through any door you can think of and make a new little door in the middle of it. That's right, my lord. It's a device for creating so-called cat flaps. Small doors for cats to come and go as they please, without their owners having to worry. I'm sure we can all work that out for ourselves. But that cat lover's contrivance has no possible relevance to this case. Oh, really? Of course it doesn't. To start with, there was no cat flap in the pawnbroker's door. Not being a keeper of cats myself, I'm afraid, I fail to see what this has to do with the matter at hand. Ich hab mir das schon fast gedacht, dass das so weit kommt, weil er sagt die ganze Zeit Peephole. Ich glaube, Susato wollte uns damit nämlich einen Hinweis geben. Perhaps it would help if I described its function another way then. This contraption is able to create a peephole in any door you can imagine in particular no time at all. I beg your pardon, a peephole, you say? 2 nights ago, we arrived at the scene only minutes after the murder of Mr. Winniebank had taken place. That's right. According to the paperwork at the yard, it was you, your Japanese assistant, and Sholmes. Yes, the 3 of us were together, and it's recently come to my attention that my assistant made use of this device at the time. Your assistant did what? There was a peephole in the storeroom door. I can attest to that. Because I looked through the peephole myself in order to see inside the locked storeroom. This is ridiculous. What are you trying to say? Of course there was a peephole in the door. I said as much in my testimony. How else could I have witnessed the crime, for pity's sake? Yes, how could you? What? Counsel, kindly say what you mean. Alright, it's time. Time to strike the final blow. What I mean is this, my lord. My assistant made the peephole in the storeroom door, and until such time as she did, the door had no hole in it to look through. This is a farce. Are you really suggesting that the peephole in the door was... Yes, it was created only after the incident had taken place by my magical assistant using this device. Your assistant tampered with the crime scene whilst being fully aware of the gravity of her actions. This is a most serious act of vandalism, for which I humbly apologize, my lord. It was in a few minutes that I left the scene in order to pursue the Skulkin brothers and alert the police. Nevertheless, in the light of this new information, it becomes apparent that Mr. Graydon's testimony is riddled with holes. Riddled with... Explain yourself, counsel. The majority of Mr. Graydon's testimony that appears to incriminate the defendant is based upon what he witnessed through the peephole in the storeroom door. Yes, that filthy girl shooting the man in the back. However, if at the time of the incident that peephole did not yet exist in the door, there is no possible way that you could have seen what you claim to have seen. In short, your entire testimony is a pack of lies. Order. Is there any credence? None whatsoever, as my learned friend must surely realize. Exactly, this is just some cheap trick designed to discredit me. I'm afraid not, sir. Of course it is. Do you seriously expect people to believe that plaything can cut through a solid wooden door? Oh yes, I designed it to be very powerful. It can cut through even the toughest of doors. That's absurd. I don't believe it for a second. I had a feeling you would say that. Waggy, Kohi, time for dinner. Well... Young lady, this is the Old Bailey. One does not make cat flaps in the oak paneling at the Old Bailey. I'm not done yet, don't worry. This doesn't mean that the peephole in the storeroom door at Winniebank's was made by your machine. And there's no way you can prove that it was. No, but it's easy. What? The cat flaps my cat flapper mat creates are all of a fixed size. And the dimensions of the peephole at Winniebank's are an exact match. Oh, Silky's lost for words. Excellent work, Iris. Thank you. And now it's my learned student friend's turn to be lost for words, I feel. I believe your judicial assistant has already left the country for your Eastern Island home. Well, yes, that's true. Then you may have some difficulty in establishing all of the facts. For the sake of argument, let us assume the peephole has dimensions that are a perfect fit for this contraption. In that case, when was the peephole cut? The prosecution demands proof of your answer. What is the purpose of your line of inquiry, Lord von Siegs? It's very simple, my lord. The defense argues that the peephole was created after the incident using this device. Ja, ich habe nämlich zu kompliziert gedacht. Ich habe erst gedacht, okay, wo hat sie ein Loch gemacht? Warum hat sie ein Loch gemacht? Hat sie da irgendwas versteckt? Weil ich auch davon ausgegangen bin, dass dieses Guckloch schon die ganze Zeit da war. Ja, und dann hat man da halt dann einfach durchgucken können. Aber das würde ja alles gar keinen Sinn ergeben. Warum sollte Susato irgendwo da ein Loch reinbohren und machen, außer für die Tür? But now that the perpetrator has returned to her native land, she cannot testify to the fact. There is no proof. Doch es gibt Beweise. Wir haben so viele Fotos von dem Red Hand Recorder von Mr. Sherlock Holmes, dass wir sehr wohl in der Lage sind, das zu beweisen. And for as long as the defense remains unable to prove when the peephole was made, my learned friend's claim amounts to nothing more than a baseless accusation. Indeed it is so, Lord von Siegs. Well, counsel, I am... Don't give up now, Runo. This is the time to create your own opening and force your way through. I don't know if I can do this, but I do know one thing. Susato-san is the greatest judicial assistant in the world. Very well, the counsel for the defense will present evidence to support the claim made. Proof that the peephole in the door of Winniebank's storeroom was created after the event and not before. Okay. Alles, was wir jetzt tun müssen, ist die Bilder durchgehen. So. Okay, das ist um 1 Uhr. Und hier sehen wir kein Loch. 1 Uhr. Dann das hier ist 1:30 Uhr nach dem Schießen. Und dann sieht man hier, dass die Klappe da ist. Das heißt, ich muss nur das Foto zeigen. What are you? A print from that detective's infernal cameras again. My judicial assistant, Miss Susato Mikotoba, is an extremely intelligent and capable woman, which is why I never had any cause to doubt that she would have considered this scenario and made sure I had the necessary proof. And the necessary proof is this photographic print, Counsel. This print shows a scene in the shop moments after the defendant entered the premises. Agreed. And it also shows the accused mercilessly wielded a gun in the direction of the defenseless broker. But more to the point, it pictures the storeroom door in the background. Let me see the print again. I don't believe it. This really is quite remarkable. The door to the storeroom is completely devoid of a peephole of any description. Mr. Graydon, you couldn't possibly have witnessed the crime as you claim to have done, because at the time it happened, there was no peephole in the door. In other words, your testimony is a catalog of lies. I am satisfied that the defense has substantiated its claim beyond all reasonable doubt. This witness's testimony was entirely fallacious. That's not the only thing we now know beyond all reasonable doubt. My learned friend's assistant's guilt can no longer be denied. The woman tampered with a crime scene. But more importantly, good lord, there's some more Lord Forensics. The defense may have established a reprehensible instance of perjury. But that is no proof that this man is the victim's killer. Yes, that's right. What? I was there at the scene. It's true. And I was shot in the arm. It's true. But that's all. Yes, in fact, if you look at the circumstances, I'm the victim here. Oh, please. I don't believe this, but they are right. As it stands now, I don't have any definitive proof that he is the culprit. Still, he can't worm his way out of it now, Iris. You know what they say. There's no point locking the cat's door after the cat has bolted. Isn't that right, Runo? As Hurley always says, one lie begets another. No, wait, that might have been a line I wrote for him in one of my stories. Well, no matter who said it first, you're right. Mr. Graydon, not only did you give false testimony to the court, but the lies you told make no sense. Make no sense? What do you mean by such a remark? What you said in your testimony reveals that you know something you shouldn't have known. In other words, there is a fundamental inconsistency in your statements. This is provocative talk, Counsel. Won't you enlighten the court? Explain this alleged inconsistency. Iris was right. One lie begets another. Konnte nicht wissen, dass auf diesem Mantel Blut war oder das Blut von jemandem da rumgespritzt ist. The inconsistency is revealed by the lies in the witnesses' statements. They show that Mr. Graydon had knowledge of something he shouldn't have known anything about, namely the third gun, the peephole, the bloodstain on the coat. The bloodstains that were present on Miss Lestrade's coat. That's right, the victim's blood spattered all over her when she shot him. But how could she possibly have known that? Obviously, because I saw her do it through the peephole in the... The point is not that you lied in your testimony, Mr. Graydon. It's the nature of the lie you concocted that is revealing. You're not making any sense. Then let me ask you a simple question. How is it, Mr. Graydon, that you knew of the existence of the peephole in the storeroom door. Well, obviously Has the cat got your tongue, witness? The peephole in the door was made after the incident occurred, and once I returned to the shop, having failed to catch the two burglars, Scotland Yard investigators arrived immediately. Since that time, the police have been at Windybanks constantly, carrying out their investigation. Isn't that right, Inspector Gregson? Well, yes, of course. The place is chock full of pawned articles, and my lads have now thoroughly examined them all. So I gave the order to have officers working around the clock and shift so we get through it all. And consequently, there is no way that you, Mr. Graydon, could have gained access to the shop. Therefore, you should have known nothing about the people in the storeroom door, so the fact that its existence forms the basis of your testimony is completely inexplicable. And yet, the fact remains that Mr. Graydon did maintain that he witnessed the crime take place through the peephole in the door. How on earth is that possible? Could I have a word, please, Lord von Zieks? Speak, Inspector. It's just that I really ought to be getting back to the station now to put in my report. There's really nothing more I can add to this testimony, so if it's all the same to you, permission denied. It's not all the same to me, Inspector. Not at all. You will remain exactly where you are until this trial concludes. Of course, sir. Mr. Graydon, you shouldn't have known about the existence of that peephole. Which can only mean that you must have been informed about it by somebody else. Stop there, my learned friend. You realize, I trust, that the words you just uttered have extremely serious implications. Yes, but the defense believes that the details about the case that Mr. Graydon claims to have seen must have been revealed to him by a certain person before his testimony. And in fact, considering a particular clue we have, there's really only one person that could be. Who is the person in question, counsel? Who gave this witness details of the crime scene to facilitate his false testimony? Das war Tobias Gregson. The truth is, it can only have been you, Inspector Gregson. You had better have some proof to substantiate such a rash claim, my learned friend. Consider the fact that we have only been aware of Mr. Ashley Graydon's identity for the last few hours. We learned of it only during the course of the trial today. Indeed, preparations for his testimony were made with great urgency during our hour-long recess. While the police executed the subpoena and brought the man here from the communications station. And until that time, Mr. Graydon would have had no idea. No inkling that he would suddenly be required to appear in court. Are you suggesting that until such time he was summoned? Yes, my lord. Until then, it's reasonable to assume he knew nothing of the peephole. It was only once Mr. Graydon was in the stand that he realized his position, that he would have to defend himself against the accusation that he was the third intruder. You're suggesting to the court that it was while this trial was in progress that he received the information, so that he could commit perjury in order to save his skin? Exactly. And the only person with knowledge of the investigation that he had any contact with is you, Inspector Gregson. This is a bloomin' outrage. Why would I be giving away details of our investigations to this fella, huh? I was summoned to his lordship's chambers during the... Quite true, I had a number of questions regarding the events that transpired at the pawnbrokery. Which means... the first time these two laid eyes on one another was after proceedings resumed following the recess. Since then, they have been in full view in the stand, where such illicit discussions couldn't possibly have occurred. Doch, die haben doch da einmal die ganze Zeit hier, als Gina ausgesagt hat, haben die doch die ganze Zeit geflüstert. Oh, I've just remembered something, Runo. What is it, Iris? There was one time before, wasn't there? I think it was when Ginny was testifying. Oh yes, now you mention it. When the bailiff was dispatched to retrieve McGilded's music box from the scene of the crime. That's it. It was during the testimony. I remember finding it strange at the time. Mr. Graydon and the inspector seemed to be having some kind of secret discussion. It would have been possible for you to give Mr. Graydon the information he needed then. You little Torek, you're making all this up. I'm a respectable Scotland Yard inspector, for crying out loud. Why would I do something like that? Why would I be giving away confidential details to the likes of this bloke? Admittedly, you wouldn't have had any reason to do something like that for no gain, but perhaps it was part of a deal of some kind. Then it starts to make more sense. What deal, counsel? I wonder if perhaps in exchange for details about the people at the crime scene, Mr. Graydon agreed to give a certain something to the inspector. I'm sure I need to remind the inspector that if found to be true, striking a deal of any kind with a witness would be considered a gross case of malfeasance. Malfeasance? It's becoming clear that jumping in with accusations is the Sneepany student's speciality. I don't do that. But with the stakes so high, the prosecution is not prepared to listen to baseless charges. It is incumbent on the defense now to present evidence in support of this diabolical claim. Evidence? Just what are you proposing that the inspector demanded of the witness in return? The court must see proof of this alleged deal. If Inspector Gregson really did strike a deal with Mr. Graydon, then logically there's only one thing he could have asked for. That must be it. Bruno, do you think it could be... Yes. It's the missing link that would join all the dots together in this puzzle. I must press you for an answer now, counsel. What evidence explained the nature of the alleged deal that Inspector Gregson made with the witness? Das kann eigentlich nur mit der Musicbox zu tun haben. Inspector Gregson, besides this murder, is it not true that you've been working on another very important case? What are you getting at now, Sunshine? Is it possible that this other top secret case is what's alluded to in this newspaper article here? The classified secrets being leaked overseas from the Ministry of Justice? Oh, how the bleeding Nora could you... We discovered during the course of this trial the music box deposited at Winniebanks by Magnus McGilded, a special music box designed to play 2 discs at once. It would seem very likely now that encoded on the pair of discs that were in McGilded's possession are the leaked classified secrets. So I put it to you, Inspector, that in order to recover the second of the discs containing those secrets, you covertly made a deal with Mr. Graydon in which you exchanged the disc for details of the case. You little... On the day of the incident, when we met you at Winniebanks, you said this. I will be taking that, whatever it is of McGilded's, down to the yard. Thank you very much. So hand it over. No, don't give it to him. It's mine, that is, mine. I'm sorry, miss, but anything belonging to McGilded has to be taken in as evidence now. Scotland Yard already knew at that time, isn't it right, that Magnus McGilded was involved in the stealing of government secrets. My orders were recover the medium used to convey the secrets leaked from the ministry, and do it on the QT, strictly hush-hush. And that explains why, when I presented this disc as evidence to the court, you objected so heavily, I presume. Because you knew that it contained highly confidential information. Blimley, no, not likely. I mean, I wasn't that sure of it myself. I realized there was a possibility, that's all. Inspector, surely you're not saying that in order to acquire the second of these music box discs, you did indeed reveal confidential details of the crime scene to the witness, to aid and abet this man in giving false testimony. There's no other way that Mr. Graydon could have known of the existence of the peephole. It's the only explanation. A deal was struck between these two men. If, and I stress if, this sobering assertion turns out to be found in truth, it would mean that the second disc, as we speak, here in this very courtroom. Wait, what? In this room? How could she possibly make a claim like that? Because Inspector Gregson is a Scotland Yard detective. What? What's that supposed to mean, huh? As a seasoned policeman, the inspector will have approached this alleged deal with caution. Certainly, he would not have accepted a gentleman's agreement in this matter. No, he would have insisted on having the article agreed upon in the palm of his hand. Good gracious, then you mean to say... Inspector Gregson already has the item in question in his possession. He has the second disc actually on his person. The defense demands that the inspector is searched at once. Definitely. They could only have struck a deal with each other when Ginny was testifying before. And Grexy hasn't moved from the witness stand since. My lord, please, order an examination of his personal effects immediately. Well, Inspector... This young lad wants to tone down his imagination. He's insulted me and my profession quite enough. However, if it will put this matter to bed and dispel any doubts about my involvement, then I will happily submit to a body search. He's going to agree to it? I presume you're aware of the precipice on which you now teeter, my learned student friend. You've made a most serious allegation against Scotland Yard here. If following the search of the inspector's personal effects no disc is found, you will be deemed unfit for court service this trouble and... Okay, Moment. Er stimmt jetzt zu. Das heißt, er hat die Disc nicht bei sich. Er hat die Disc woanders versteckt. Und das zweite Mal, dass er sich komisch verhalten hat, war, als er einen der Skulkin-Brüder, Nash, die ganze Zeit hier geschüttelt hat und angegriffen hat. Und genau in dem Moment muss Gregson die Music Disc bei ihm versteckt haben. And my country's government will formally demand of yours that you are severely reprimanded. That sounds serious. Indeed, to have a visiting student make such defamatory remarks about our country's most senior police force is not something Her Majesty's government will be able to overlook. You're just threatening Runo because you're scared. The accusation is beyond serious. You must be prepared for grave consequences. It's true. I can't imagine Gregson would have accepted a gentleman's agreement for something so critical. The disc must have physically changed hands, which means the inspector should have it. But somehow, something doesn't feel quite right here. Very well, counsel. You know the implications, so let me ask you one final time. Yes, my lord. Do you still persist in formally requesting a search of the inspector's personal effects? Nein, wir werden jemand anderen durchsuchen lassen. Yes, the defense formally demands the search to be conducted. Well, don't say you weren't warned, but your typical Nipponese stubbornness may well land you in hot water this time. Perhaps the lesson will do you some good. Fair enough, I've got nothing to hide. Very well done. Belief, conduct a search of the inspectors. The defense demands a search, but not of Inspector Gregson. What? No, what all this? I'm the one you're accusing, aren't I? I thought you wanted to search me. No, Inspector, not you. Somebody else. What's the meaning of all this, huh? Lost it at last, have you, Sunshine? The court shouldn't have to put up with this nonsense. You're being completely irrational. Be quiet, all of you. Bruno's doing what you all told him to do and having the courage of his convictions. So you should respect that and listen to what he has to say in good faith. Because that's the British way. Well said, young lady. Indeed, this court is in awe of the defense counsel's conviction and eagerly awaits his next words. You what? No, don't be hasty, my lord. If I'm not mistaken about the things I've seen in court today, I'm fairly sure that I know who has the disc at the moment. There's only one person it can be. Counsel, of whom do you request this search now? Nash Skulkin. Of my lord, Mr. Nash Skulkin. Well, I never... Me? Him? Very well done, my lief. Restrain the witness and conduct a thorough search of his personal effects. Police, my lord. Inspector. Scotland Yard has to object to the search. Unfortunately for you, Inspector, your objections carry no weight here. In this courtroom, only the prosecution and the defense have the authority to object. But Butler von Zeeks, I have no idea what forces are in play that might influence your actions. But personally, I have no intention of obstructing the course of this trial. My lief, carry out the search. No, autonomo, I don't know nothing. Nothing about no disc. Cut it out. Here, my lord, in the witness's pocket. I found this. Good lord, that's another music box disc. I don't know nothing about it, nothing. That is the second music box disc left behind by Magnus McGilded. Is it not, Inspector Gregson? Mr. Skulkin, what have you to say for yourself? Gordon Bennett, I mean, just Gordon Fleming Bennett. I swear I didn't know nothing about that disc, honest to God. Counsel, would you please explain what exactly is going on here? The alleged deal that was struck was between this witness and this detective, no? Without question, my lord. Then for pity's sake, why on earth was this man in possession of the disc that the inspector traded for information? Inspector Gregson is a shrewd, calculating man who rarely loses his composure, but at one particular point in this trial he exhibited some unusual behavior for a brief moment. I don't recall. What unusual behavior? It was, yes, during my cross-examination of Mr. Graydon. Tell me, Mr. Graydon, when you left the pawnbrokery that night, was it by any chance with the second disc in your jacket pocket? I admit to nothing of the sort. While Mr. Graydon answered my question, the inspector appeared to have grabbed Nash Skulkin by his coat and was shaking him violently. Yeah, he did and all. Thought me noggin was gonna fall clean off, I did. I was wishing I would be burn as me brother I was. And what exactly happened to make the detective attack you like that? I ain't got a clue, he just suddenly turned and grabbed me whistly like that and started shaking me. Why the blazes did you mention the third gun when we got you down the station? That's what he said. He yelled it right down my ear. All he did, my head still throbbing now. The way the detective behaved then was extremely out of character. But looking back now, it must have been then that he did it. That was the opportunity Inspector Gregson created for himself in order to hide the disc. Well, bless my wick, he did it. But I'm afraid I failed to comprehend the motive here. If the detective had acquired the disc he was after, why on earth would he then proceed to hide it in another man's pocket? This is a court of law. He could have submitted the item as evidence. It would appear, my lord, that the inspector was not at liberty to do that. Why ever not? As the man himself revealed earlier, his current assignment has some special conditions. My orders were recover the medium used to convey the secrets leaked from the ministry, and do it on the QT, strictly, hush hush. Hush hush, a top secret assignment, is it? As far as we are aware, the information stolen comes from confidential government communications. It would seem that if that information were to be revealed in court as evidence, it would be problematic. Does that sum up the situation, Inspector? I am operating under direct orders from the Ministry. I'm afraid I'm not at liberty to answer the question. So, realizing there was a chance that you may be searched here in court, you took steps to hide the disc you had acquired from the witness. Does this mean he only pretended to attack Mr. Skulkin in order to get close enough to him, to slip the second disc into his pocket? So it was all a pretense? Well now, Inspector Gregson, and you, Mr. Graydon, are you prepared to admit to the accusation made against you of this alleged deal? Admit to it, yes truly, please. Mr. Graydon, clearly our Eastern visitor has an uncommonly active imagination. However, there's no proof that I passed that disc to the inspector. But then, how do you explain the reason why you knew about the peephole? I'm under no obligation to explain. Yes, I lied in my testimony, that I admit, so sentence me accordingly, but that is all I admit. Murder, leaking government secrets, striking a deal with the detective, all of it is this young Eastern man's fancy. I have no idea what any of this is about. You... Well, what about you then, Inspector Gregson? Do you admit to making a deal with Mr. Graydon in order to acquire the disc? Ladies and gents of the jury, as a Scotland Yard inspector, I will declare this and nothing more. I am acting in the best interest of the country. Whatever I've done, it's been in the name of justice. So, as members of the public of this fine country, I would like to think that justice will be your guiding light when you are making your decisions. This is quite a quandary indeed. Rarely have I encountered such extraordinary tumultuousness in the concluding of a trial. Nevertheless, in the absence of any further evidence to be presented, I believe it is time that we put the matter to the jury for their final leanings. Well now, as a fellow servant of Queen and country, I must say I sympathize with the old inspector. Yes, he is a dependable man. I'm quite sure in service one becomes a good judge of character. Even crossing your eyes doesn't help when it comes to looking at this case. It's all blurred to me. Well, as a fellow professional, I would like to put my faith in the detective, really. Graydon is highly skilled operator. Stop. Currently in presence of idol. Stop. Detective is very much trust in eyes. More than this, I cannot say. I don't believe it. These €6 are... They're going to believe Gregson if they declare their decision now. Is Ginny going to be found guilty? If I don't manage to produce some definitive evidence right now, then we are going to lose. Either some proof that Graydon killed Mr. Winniebank or stole those government secrets, or some evidence to force Gregson into admitting that he struck a deal with the witness. Well then, counsel, I think it's time I imposed on the jurors to declare their final decisions, no? That is, unless you have some compelling evidence you have thus far not presented to the court. If I let the judge call on the jurors to announce their leanings, Gina will be found guilty. But there's no choice then, Bruno. You have to throw some more evidence at them. This is it now. It all comes down to this. Who do I present evidence against, Gregson or Graydon?